to get that guy going. All right, that's looking good. We're all green. And the meeting is yours, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, it's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to get started with this meeting. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Josephine Spencer, and I would like to welcome you to the White Lake Zoning Board of Appeals. This board is a quasi-judicial board, which consists of 5 members. In order for your variance to be granted, you must receive the majority vote from the full board, and we do have a full board this evening. In order for this board to grant a variance, you must prove a hardship or practical difficulty exists. Unfortunately, personal hardships of financial concern will not be considered by this board. If your variance is granted, you have 6 months in which to pull the required permits, or your variance will expire and you must reappear before this board. If your variance is denied, you have the right to appeal this decision. By state statute, you must appeal to the circuit court, and you have 30 days in which to file an appeal. There is no other township board that can overrule this decision. All cases will be heard in the order in which they are presented on the agenda. I will call the case, staff will give their review, and the proponent will have 20 minutes in which to speak. The board will then ask questions of the proponent, and the public will then ask questions of the proponent, and the public hearing will then be over. Each member of the public who wishes to speak will have 3 minutes in which to do so. If you are representing a group of homeowners associations, you will have 5 minutes to speak. However, no other individuals from this group will then be recognized to speak. We ask that you state your name and address for the record. After the public hearing is closed, the proponent will then have 5 minutes to address any questions or concerns. It will then be brought back to the board for consideration, a motion, and a roll call. If you are from the public and you wish to speak during a case, you must note that you have to press *9 before you're going to be able to allow to vote. Voice your opinions. And with that, may we have a roll call, please?
DeHart?
Here.
Powell?
Here.
Schlack?
Unmute.
Nick, you're muted.
Present. My apologies.
Walls? Walls?
Here.
Spencer?
Here. Thank you. Oh, we got them all?
Yep.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We have a motion to approve our agenda.
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
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 Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could really quick, just so everyone's aware, the continuing business 5A has been asked to actually wanted to be removed from the agenda. So I think we could either make a note of that, or you could officially remove her from the agenda, which was a request she made on Monday. It might, just for sake of clarity, it might be better just to remove her, officially remove her from the agenda at this time, as that was her request to the office on Monday.
Okay, then I am officially removing the case of Kim McFadden for the 9120 Buckingham, which also is identified as 12-14-280-014. Because this case was scheduled for 6:05 this evening, and the next case is not scheduled until 6:55, we are going to stay with the schedule that was originally advertised for. So there's probably going to be some long delays in between all these, because I can talk a lot, but I can't talk 45 minutes for forever. I mean, I could, but I don't think you really want to listen to me. So with that said, we have the February 26th minutes to approve. Do we have a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion.
And do we have a support?
Support?
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Okay,
Hey, Joe,
yes,
just really quick. I think some of the other boards and commissions have been making sure, and it's not a big deal for minutes. There usually aren't, there isn't a split vote usually on minutes, but when we do get down to the cases, when the motion's made and all the details of the motion are included, I would just ask that we have Hannah call the roll so we specifically know there's no confusion as to who said what, especially with the muting of microphones on occasion. So we do want to try to do roll call votes tonight for the 3 cases.
for the 3 cases, but not for the minutes.
I think we're good on minutes, but just for the cases, just so it's the record's very clear.
Okay, so I'll do it like I normally do it. Is there any other business from the end of our agenda that we could discuss now while we're waiting for the 655 case?
Well, there's no other business, but the next meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks from tonight. And there are 3 cases on that agenda, and we did not, the reason we scheduled time slots tonight is because there were 4 cases and they were fairly involved cases, and we felt that they could take a lot of time and it could get really congested for Ken to kind of run the meeting from his end at Merge Live. So we did not schedule time slots. So the same schedule there won't be times laid out in 2 weeks. It'll just be all 3 cases at once. And Justin will take the lead at that meeting in 2 weeks, but it'll be the same basic format. So that's really the only thing to announce. And the other thing I wanted to say for the record is the reason that Kim McFadden had asked to be taken off the agenda is she felt, and her group felt, that they wanted to attend a meeting in person. They did not want to attend a meeting over Zoom. Just so you know, we did on May 8th contact via email and also by phone all of the 4 applicants for tonight to confirm that they were comfortable with this format, and all of them agreed that they were. It wasn't until Monday that Ms. McFadden asked to be removed from the agenda, which we were, that was fine. I mean, it's her choice, but we did let her know that we do not know, we don't have a date certain for returning to in-person meetings. I mean, certainly in 2 weeks, we'll be doing this ZBA meeting on Zoom, and it may be the case in July as well. So we'll have to work with her to get her back when she's comfortable coming back again. So I just wanted everybody to know kind of how that came about and how it'll be handled.
Thank you.
If I could ask for a point of order, then based upon what Sean presented, I want to make sure that they don't have to reapply and pay all the fees all over again. Should we have postponed them until date uncertain when they want to appear, instead of removing them from the agenda?
Well, we did I wasn't going to bring it up, but you asked a fair question. For some of these, McFadden first came to you in January, and it was tabled at that time. We published this agenda in March. We published it again in April, and again, with everything going on, we had to cancel. So the McFadden case has been published by the township 4 times now, and because she caused it to have to be published a 5th time, I did tell her she will be paying the fees for renoticing for her case, because she had the opportunity to be here tonight, had agreed to be here tonight, and then on Monday said that she wasn't going to. So we will still have to pay to send notices to the neighbors. We will still have to pay to put a notice in the newspaper, and it would be the 5th time the township's published it. And it's unreasonable, I feel, to have the township pay for further publications and mailings for an applicant in this situation.
So since we have a little bit of time, I was just curious, a tabling automatically comes back up the next month. A postponement, date uncertain, and we just happen to have our legal expert on with us tonight. If we postpone it, do we then have to re-advertise when it comes back up on the agenda, when they then want to have themselves placed on the agenda?
Yeah, and I'll let Lisa chime in too, Mike, but when you are on an agenda, we publish the whole agenda. So the more meetings that are on the agenda, the more, the greater the cost. Sometimes,
right,
like this meeting costs us $375 to publish. Sometimes they're only $150 if there's one case. So there is a cost. It just depends on, the length of the agenda. So we will have to pay again regardless, because she'll appear on another agenda. And her original request has changed. And I think it's important anytime a request changes that it be noticed again, because maybe applicants, when the request changes, the neighbors may not have previously been interested, but with the changes, they may be more interested or less interested. So that's kind of where we're at with this one.
That makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense then. Lisa?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. I also think with all of the adjourning that has been happening in light of what's been happening, I think it's probably safest to just republish. She wants to have a live meeting. We wait for that. There's nothing wrong with postponing. You don't have to necessarily postpone to a date certain. You can postpone to a triggering event. And so it could be postponed until we can have a live meeting, and that's fine.
And just for the record, because it was out of everyone's control that we did not have the March or the April meeting, we did not ask any of these applicants to pay again. It was just something the township paid for because it was out of everyone's control. And again, the only reason we're causing that to happen in this case is because they agreed on May 8th to participate in this way, and then 30 days later said, well, we changed our mind, we don't want to, or else we just would have avoided sending out letters. We would have avoided publishing and adding to the cost of that publication, and then went ahead and still put her on without charging her at a future date. But now it's 2 more publications instead of just the 1.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
So what, Joe, we're gonna, if everyone wants to take a break and, we can sit here, or you can take a break if you need to.
Just real quick, Sean,
yeah.
if I could interrupt for just a moment. There are 2 people in the waiting room, a Terry and Richard Horton. Will they be part of the discussion this evening?
Terry and Richard, what?
Horton, Horton.
They aren't one of the applicants or their representatives.
They both
may
live
be
on
before.
Kingston.
They're not part of an applicant group though, are they, Justin?
Correct, they're not.
I didn't think
Is
so.
is it possible that some people might be coming in thinking that they're going to be part of the McFadden one, or?
Yeah, I don't know. Are you able to let them into audio only, Ken?
I can. The problem is I can let them in, but they could override the video. They could turn their video on. I'd have to manually override it, and then I have to manually override everyone's video at that point. It's a little bit more clunky. It's doable.
Okay, because if I don't want them to think they're missing anything because
Sure.
the 605 is not happening, but at the same time, I don't want to think they're missing anything, and I don't want them to wait around until.
Yeah.
So I don't know how.
Is there a reason you don't want to let them come in with video to find out who they are and what they're doing?
Well, because that's how Zoom bombers get in. Zoom bombers are
Oh.
faking names and doing bad things once they get into the meeting. So it is a risk if I let these people in, that they could be Zoom bombers. I mean, my gut is probably not, but possibility exists.
Isn't that address that Nick just said close to Buckingham?
Yeah, they live on Kingston, which is
Like
close
right
to
around the corner.
Buckingham.
Yeah, they're
Correct.
probably part of the McFadden one.
They probably are. Nick, if you know who they are, then maybe we can try to let them in. I don't know them, but if you know them, then we can let them in and let them know. They can certainly stay on and listen, but the case they may be interested in will not.
I'm not sure which Nick. I'm just taking a guess.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't know if you need
Nick.
the other Nick. Yeah.
I know for sure that they live on Kingston.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So it sounds like the direction is let them in. We'll pull up their video, confirm who they are, and then let them know that what their status is.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm letting them in now. We'll cross our fingers.
Are they in, Ken?
They are in. Richard, if you can hear me, please accept the start camera request I just sent. We'd like to get confirmation of your feed right now. Terry, also, if you can hear us, please state your name. Terry, can you hear us? Yeah, Terry and Richard. Richard, if you can hear me, please accept the video request from us so we can get confirmation. Terry's microphone is unmuted. Terry, that just joined our meeting, can you please state your name and address for the record? Well, perhaps they've walked away from their computers. So just to recap, Sean, we have no activity until 6:55 now, or 6:50 approximately?
That's correct, unless there was anyone who had any questions about, the process for tonight or anything else procedurally.
Well, that means Joe and I are going to talk about vacations then.
Yes, we are indeed.
You guys have lots to talk about.
You do know, don't you, Mike? This is when I was supposed to be over in England sailing.
Yeah, I was supposed to be on a cruise all this week too.
I know. Oh, well.
And just again, to remind everyone, we are streaming live to YouTube, up to the world right now.
Well, that's okay. Mike and I don't care.
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, no worries. I just, in case there's any personal information.
Don't give your social security number or your mother's maiden name.
Correct.
Yeah, and I won't say anything else either.
Sean, do you have a link to that Zoom meeting from the DNR? I went back and found the email and I don't see a link.
Was the email from me or from, I think Hannah had sent the link from Mary Carlock, or maybe Justin did. I can look for it.
I found the email from Mary, but it just was a flyer. And it said something about calling the director of the DNR. Which I didn't do, because I thought there was a link in there.
So we'll ask again, Richard Horton, if you can hear me, please unmute your system along with start your video camera. We just need to get confirmation of your feed, please.
Does that work?
Is this Richard?
Yeah, this is Richard.
Yeah, we can hear you. There should be a request coming across your screen to start your video camera.
Yeah, and I've selected start my video like 3 times and it's not starting.
Okay, that's fine. We just want to get confirmation. So you're here for one of the cases this evening?
Yeah, I wanted to listen in on the cases this evening, yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to mute you at this point, Richard, since you're just listening on the cases. Terry, we just need confirmation from you. I'm assuming your name is Terry. It came across the Zoom ID as Terry. If anyone else has joined to just listen, could you please state your name and address for the record?
Hey, Debbie?
Yes?
I want to let you know that it looked like when I went to that link that pre-registration was required for that meeting tonight, and I never even thought about doing it because we had this, but it sounded like you had to go follow a link to get pre-registered, probably to keep Zoom bombers out. But for Mr. Horton, I don't know if you're aware, but there were 4 cases scheduled for tonight. But the first case, the one on 9120 Buckingham, has asked to be removed from the agenda, so that one will not be heard tonight. However, the other 3, beginning at 6:55, will be heard tonight.
Okay, that was the case I was here. The other 3 that are on this agenda, so Cooley Beach, Elizabeth Lake Road, and Ranveen Drive. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, and for the DNR meeting, you did have to pre-register, and they sent you an email because I had pre-registered for that meeting as well.
Well,
I was a couple minutes late joining this one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Have a good night.
You too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, since I do not have confirmation of Terry, is it okay if I move Terry back to the waiting room?
Certainly, Tim. I think that's okay.
Okay.
In the waiting room, they can still hear and see what's going on, correct?
No, unfortunately not. We are, as I mentioned, streaming live to YouTube. They can see and hear what's going on there, but if they're in the waiting room on the Zoom application, they cannot.
Shouldn't they be allowed to listen to the live action?
They could. The only problem is they have the ability, once we let them in the room, they will have the ability to show a video if they would like. They can start their own video camera.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Is there not an administrative feature that prevents sharing screens from other people?
Not in this configuration. I can do that with audio. I can lock, let's see, I can lock everyone's.
I've been in plenty of meetings where I've had to have administrative access to share my screen or.
Yeah, and so the way that works is that's called the webinar feature in Zoom. We are not on a webinar. The downside of webinar is you can't stream live to YouTube with it, or it's a much more involved process that doesn't seem to work all the time.
Okay, thank you for explaining that. Yeah.
So in reality, if they're in the waiting room, they can get on and see us live on YouTube, though.
That's correct. And there is a number that was published. There's 2 phone numbers, a regular number and a toll-free number. They can call in, and they're automatically put into this room.
Okay.
There's no threat of video Zoom bombing then.
Yeah, that makes sense. I just didn't want to be like closing the door on them.
Sure. And then obviously we're trying to accommodate. Unfortunately, they do have a correct way of joining this meeting over traditional telephone.
Yes. I would like to recognize that this is the first time I think I've seen Justin.
That's right.
You're muted, Justin, evidently. We can't hear you. Uh-oh. Well, we can see you, Justin. We can't hear you. Welcome,
Yeah.
Justin.
Justin, you're not muted on my side, on the platform side. You're muted somewhere locally there. Yeah, okay. If you could go back to that. I just saw it. No, there it is. It's still on your computer side.
You might have to get back into your microphone settings and have it recognize which microphone you're using.
Yep. There you go. Now, hang on one second, Justin. I just sent a command to unmute. If you accept that command. Nope, the microphone's
I think Sean did that to you deliberately, Justin.
Take it personal, for sure.
Yeah.
Not that he's trying to cause trouble. Hey, Mike,
Yes,
remember
ma'am.
our mutual friend that goes to church with me that worked with you?
Yes.
Sold his house and he's moving to Georgia next month.
Oh, well, I'll be.
Yep.
Well,
So I give you
Georgia,
a heads up.
I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
That's, we'll miss them. Georgia wouldn't be my first choice.
Well, but that's where Lisa and the boys are.
Yeah.
So I know.
Thank you for letting me know.
You're welcome.
If I was a lip reader, I could hear what you were saying, Justin. So the other meetings that I've attended recently, virtually all the communities are saying after June 30th, they're hoping that the governor doesn't pull the rug out from underneath them again. And they're going to face-to-face meetings as of July 1. I have my first face-to-face in 2 months in Plymouth Township next week. And so it'll be really nice to be in front of real people again. Last night I attended 2 Zoom meetings at the exact same time, which I'm not going to be able to do when things are live, because I can shift back and forth between the two, and I can present one and then immediately jump to the next one and do a presentation on the next one. So I've been double dipping a little bit lately. I think we ought to all go get a bowl of ice cream while we're waiting.
I can. I'm stuck at the town hall.
Oh, yeah, rip.
I know.
Joe, by law or by anything, do you have to be leading this from that location, or is that just a
Okay.
preference?
No, a preference. I've only done one other Zoom meeting, and that was with the group from church. So I wanted to make, and plus I need to have the files in front of me, and I was hesitant to have the files leave the town hall, be sent to my house in case,
Yeah,
you know, if we ever end up in court, I want to make sure that everything is above board. You know me, Nick.
we always keep it
From
above
years in
board.
government.
Absolutely. Yep.
So I'm not going to tell you when I'm leaving, Joe, but since our cruises have been all canceled the last 3 months, and
Yeah.
really through who knows when, through September, I'm going to take a cross-country roundabout train trip. We're going to we're going to leave here out of Ann Arbor and go to Denver, and then to Sacramento, then to Seattle, and then back again. And we're going to take a couple weeks on the train.
And you know, that's one of the last things on my bucket list to do. Alaska was the last one of the states, and that's one other thing I want to do too. I have gone across the United States many times, back and forth, up and down, just crisscrossing, but I've always wanted to do it by train.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, Mike, I've done a sort of reverse trip. I've done the Empire Builder from Chicago to Seattle and back.
Yeah.
And then actually, when I graduated from college, back then there was a 30-day North American rail pass, US and Canada. It was only $300.
Oh,
and you
my.
could do unlimited travel. Of course, no sleeping compartment. And I was, 21, so my body could handle, the sleeping upright ish. And but I went, went to hop on the train in Ann Arbor, my hometown. It's a great station, actually, one of the most used ones in the whole country. And then kind of roundabout way, got over to Toronto, went to Winnipeg, went up to the Hudson Bay, which was
my.
That train route is kind of blocked off now, which is kind of tough for the people up there because they've had some issues with the track. But anyways, eventually got down to Sacramento and then did the train all the way back. So How long is your layover in Chicago?
Just 2 hours.
Okay. Do you have like a sleeping compartment either direction or?
No, because we're just going short legs. We're gonna spend 4 days in Denver and 4 days in Sacramento. So we're just gonna rough it overnight there. We do have a sleeping car coming back from Seattle though.
Okay, then you're gonna love it because but when you come back, if you have either the business class or the sleeping compartment, there's a gosh, I'm trying to remember the name of it, but there's a special club lounge in the Chicago station, in Union Station.
Cool.
And really comfortable. Now, again, I don't know how it's going to be exactly right now, but normally under normal circumstances, it's really comfortable. They have snacks, they have coffee, TVs, couches. It's a really nice solace from the hustle and bustle of the station. I might be like Ambassador Club, something like that, but it'll, and you also get, usually if you're in that club, they'll give you, they'll kind of walk you up and give you a little bit of priority seating on that trip back to Ann Arbor.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So that, yeah, look for, you'll figure it out pretty fast, but look for it and you'll really appreciate the difference if it's open right now, if it is.
So Joe and I have to check this bucket list off a lot faster than you do.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, I got a head start on that one.
Not fair.
I will tell you, I will travel by train any day. That's definitely my preference.
Cool. I'm anxious.
You'll appreciate it. Gosh, what is the name of that club?
Will this be your first train trip, Mike?
It will be in the States. I was blessed, and back when I was first married back in the 70s, my wife and I and her mom, we did the Orient Express between Paris and Austria. And boy, what a neat memory that was.
Yeah, I did the trains in Italy when I was 16.
Yeah.
And I've taken many a trip to Toronto and Niagara Falls on the trains here, but I've always wanted to go cross country.
Yeah, so it's going to be a nice adventure for us.
Yeah, well, good thought. Thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep that in mind.
I'll report back to you next month.
Very good.
I found the name of it here, Metropolitan Lounge.
Ah, thank you. I will look that up. Cool.
Yeah, and boy, I really do hope they have it open for you. But Orient Express, though, that's part of my bucket list.
Oh,
I have not done that one yet.
Incredible train, man. I didn't get to solve a murder, but we enjoyed it anyway.
You never get everything, right?
Well, a couple of years ago, when 4 of us went over to China, there were probably 30 buses of us all in this one group. Wow. And out of all the buses, ours is the only bus 13. Very lucky number for me. Ours was the only bus that got to take the bullet train.
Wow.
And that thing flies like an airplane, but it is so smooth. It was so cool. And then everybody was really mad when we met up for dinner on the Yangtze River on the cruise ship. We told them, and they were like, well, we had to fly. Well, we had to take a bus.
Oh my.
So, yep, that was a good one too.
I hope Hannah knows that she shouldn't be taking notes minutes right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're good.
Oh, good. Thanks, Hannah. Good thinking, Mike.
So Hannah, you and I need to do some talking about our meeting last night.
That was a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounded convincing.
Yeah, it was an attorney's nightmare, Lisa.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And that was my first time there too, so that was a nice way to set things off.
I know, it's not like that, believe me, Hannah.
Yeah, Paige emailed me today and she was kind of apologetic and I felt bad, but I didn't realize that park is such a point of contention over there. That's a big deal, Don.
Yeah, there are some very strong feelings, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Justin, you got your act together there yet?
Nope.
Nope, you're gonna have to shake your head. I think Joe Spencer should come over and help you.
What? I can see Sean right behind him.
They both have the same webcam too. We both tested them, so I don't know what's going on with this.
If Justin has a quarter inch, or not a quarter inch, an 1/8 inch plug in the side of his computer, it's going to default to that instead of the inboard microphone. So you may have to unplug that so it doesn't read it improperly.
So, Mike, which park was, caused the contention at the meeting?
The Clara Miller Park on Benstein Road in the village of Wolverine Lake.
Oh,
Oh, okay, it wasn't a White Lake.
No, this one is their Park and Rec Committee was recommending and wanted to do a great deal of improvements. Council didn't think, at least the majority of the council didn't think that they should spend all that money. And so there was a contention between the group that wanted it and didn't want it. It was not really smoothly handled.
I was just wondering if it was one of our parks.
No. Our first board meeting is going to be Tuesday, next week, next Tuesday, and in White Lake, and it should be interesting to kind of pull the board together and summarize what's happening around the township.
Oh, so that's the first meeting is next Tuesday?
First meeting in a month, and since all this has happened around the country and around this state, we've got a lot of business to take care of.
so Mike, help me understand again. So you were in Wolverine Lake. Is it a different commission? I'm just unsure what it is. Yeah.
Well, remember how government works. Townships are you have the counties, and then you have the townships that break up the counties.
Sure.
Inside the townships, you can either have cities that incorporate or villages that incorporate.
Sure.
And when they incorporate inside townships, they become an entity of their own. And so they have village managers or mayors and city councils or village councils. And so they have a government all within themselves.
Right.
And villages have to pay not only the village tax, but the township taxes.
Okay.
But they are autonomous in how they govern themselves. And so the village, I'm their engineer. And so the village.
Of course, of course, I knew that part. I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I was just trying to put that. Yeah, I mean, actually, the first time we met was when I was serving Shepherd of the Lakes over in Walled Lake or Commerce Township, or really actually Wolverine Lake, right?
Exactly correct.
Just 3 names on 1 address, but okay, thank you. Yeah,
no problem.
I got it now. Gosh, how many years ago? That would have been 2013, 2014, maybe.
Yeah, that area around the church has changed a lot. If you haven't been back to see it, you should drive by it.
I did. We really tried to pick up one of those extra pieces of property that looked like it would have been landlocked, but couldn't really get different things. We just couldn't get a lot of movement on that. So, yeah.
But there's a lot of parishioners that can walk to church now.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. They have a new pastor over there. He's actually served there for as an intern pastor for a couple of years, and I believe it's just this week he's being ordained.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go introduce myself to him.
Very nice guy. His name's Judd. Really second career. People like him a lot. So I'm really, really happy for them.
Good. So I don't think Lisa would mind if I politic right now and supported all the, I'm not going to, Lisa. That's right.
Let me tell you what I really think about.
We are almost there, guys. Keep it
Yep.
PG.
Time to go get ice cream.
Yep. You know what? I think I'm going to. I'm gonna.
No, you don't have
just-
time now.
Mike, I figured you'd have a whole box of cookies by you or something.
You know what? I've lost 10 pounds, guys, and so I'm doing pretty well without all that snacking.
I gained it sitting at home snacking all day.
That I totally see. I understand that. Lisa, I'm so sorry. It's I either went on a diet or I would be 300 pounds right now because I love eating. That's why I love.
That's been honestly the hardest part of the whole working from home thing
Yeah.
is being able to just resist getting up and, you just want to get up and walk around. Well, I'm in my dining room, so getting up and walking around puts me in my kitchen.
Yes.
When I go on a cruise, I eat 3 dinners and every dessert they have, and it just I love it, and I just
they're dangerous.
Oh my.
I mean, first, the 5 o'clock sushi dinner, the 6 o'clock real. What do they say? You go on as a passenger and you leave as cargo.
I've never heard that, but I like it.
Yeah. Okay, Joe. Genuinely, I have about 7 minutes, or is that correct, or 2?
Probably. It's
Okay.
6:43 right now.
I will be very fast.
And for the record, people, I lose weight when I go on a cruise.
Oh, Joe,
For
congratulations.
the record, I'm jealous.
You're seasick or what?
Not to say that I don't eat. It's just that I'm always exploring the ship. I get up super early in the morning and I start walking, and I literally will walk up the steps to the next floor and around it and then up and then up. Some of those cruise ships are 14 to 17 stories tall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have they let you drive yet?
No.
Hey, Joe, if you followed any of that, they are evidently making major changes. They're eliminating all buffets, and so ships are not going to be the same as they used to be.
Right. Well, and maybe it's for a good reason. I mean, there were other viruses that you could always catch on a cruise ship. We both know.
Yeah. Yep.
I know I'll never forget that one time we were, going through the buffet line, and the gal that was passing out the silverware started telling me, you have to wash your hands. And of course, most of them don't speak very well English. So she was mimicking what I had to do. And she kept, and then I go to reach for the tray and she'd go more and she'd go more and she'd go more. And then finally I turned to the gentleman next to me and I said, you think a 50-some-year-old woman would know she has to wash her hands before she comes to dinner. And he said, keep doing what they're saying. My wife is very ill right now. And then I noticed the buffet line, instead of us taking the food that we wanted, they were all behind now with gloves on, giving us our portions.
Ah, yes.
So
That's what's going to happen, right?
So I don't do buffets anymore.
Yeah. Don't blame you.
Yep. So.
Hey, Ken,
Yes.
do you want to try that Terry again? I feel like maybe she needed to have access rather than sitting in a waiting room.
Okay.
Let's just see if she responds.
Hi, Terry. If you could, please state your name and address. We just admitted you to the meeting. We need to get confirmation. Or I should say to the attendee that just joined the meeting and unmuted your system, please state your name and address for the record.
My name Clint Kesto, appearing for Mike Krebs, who I see is there but muted.
Oh, hi, Clint. Yes, we.
Hey, how you
we
doing,
do-
Ken?
Good.
Hey, Nick.
We do have confirmation of your audio and video. We're working on another person that just joined the meeting and has unmuted their system, but we're not getting any audio from them.
Lisa.
I'm here.
So Terry, or whoever the person is that just came into the meeting and unmuted your system, unfortunately, we need to get confirmation of your attendance. There is a toll-free number that you can call in to this meeting. You can also provide public comment on that call-in number. But for this video participant portion of the meeting, we will have to ask that you leave this meeting and then go into the traditional telephone. Again, the traditional telephone number is stated on the White Lake webpage. I can also provide it. The number is 312-626-6799, and enter your meeting ID and password, and you will be admitted back into this meeting. We are also streaming this live to YouTube right now. So unfortunately, we will move you to back out of this meeting.
And Ken, just for anyone who can't find it, I'll say again, the toll-free number to call in if you're not a video participant or basically an applicant tonight or their representatives is 312-626-6799.
That's not the toll-free one.
The toll-free number is 888-788-0099. Again, 888-788-0099.
Thank you, Sean. Madam Chair, does it look like we have our full complement for this next phase of the meeting?
Oh, we have Clint Kesto and Mike Krebs. Mike is the proponent. I'm assuming Clint is one of his representatives.
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm going to go ahead and drop out here. If you need anything, please let me know.
Thank you.
Joe, I think we got about 5 minutes or so before we can kick this one off for a 6:55 start time. So.
Okay.
You guys feel like we're kind of in a telethon or something? We're trying to raise cash, giving out phone numbers and having people calling in. It's
yeah.
Weird.
There we go. I like that, Sean.
Yeah, I do too. I could use some extra cash.
Well, I was thinking like to build a park or something. You got plenty of cash.
No, not after having to redo one of my rental houses.
Park would be good though too, wouldn't it?
Yeah, park would be great. It would, really.
You got to get Scarlet Smile to do a park over in White Lake then.
Yeah, I didn't they catch the people that vandalized that park?
Wait, somebody vandalized it?
Oh yeah, it was in the news
yeah.
a few weeks ago. People went in there with bolt cutters and just tore it up a bit, which is
But they had a grand opening last Friday.
well, maybe a reopening after they put everything back together. People went in and cut swings off and all kinds of ridiculous stuff.
It was terrible.
Yeah, I think they caught the people.
Yeah, I say, did they ever catch them? Did they catch who did it?
I think they.
Yes.
I thought they did. Yeah.
At least one of the people. Yeah.
Did for.
Before we get started, I want to say hi, Clint.
Mike, how are you doing? Good to see you again.
Good to see you again, Clint.
Looking good. Did you get younger during this quarantine Or
I
what?
get younger every day. I do the opposite of everyone else.
I like that.
It's a rare gene.
Can you email all of us what you do? At least for me, I definitely need the email.
Joe and I have the same process. We go on lots of vacations.
Ah, man. Well, I got 2 little ones and 1 on the way.
Well,
How many
see,
vacations I got in me?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You'll never
That's-
get his secrets. It's like getting the Colonel's secret recipe. It's not going to happen.
Yep.
Matter of fact, we just had them outside. We have this little kids picnic table. We had some food. They want to do a picnic. So we're outside having a picnic. And then I said, honey, I got to get on this call. Make sure they stay upstairs. Whatever you do, make sure they stay upstairs.
Yep.
So she threw them in the bath. They're good, I think.
Little feet can be loud on the ceiling upstairs too.
Yeah.
Right. We're hovering.
I don't know about you, Clint, but my wife's a lot better at keeping the kids
I'm
occupied
good, thank you.
when I'm busy than I seem to be keeping the kids occupied when she's busy. So I don't know. She's got the magic. I guess.
I'm in that same boat.
Real quick, Madam Chair, I see a Jim Schuster, and I looked at my list. It looks like, is he supposed to be in this meeting?
Not to my knowledge. Sean? Justin, do you know?
There's a Jim and Robert from Custom Builders.
Yeah,
That's the
they're
second.
Oh,
the next
okay.
case. Jim and Robert are on for the 745 Creative Custom Homes case.
Is it Jim Schuster?
Is that who's with Robert?
No, there's just in the waiting room right now is a Jim Schuster, and on my list I have Jim and Robert from Custom Builders. There's no last name for the Jim on Custom Builders.
Let me verify.
Thank you.
Next. To Jim. Okay. Did everyone just freeze?
I know Robert's last name, but I'm verifying Jim's.
I think this is it.
To see if Jim Schuster is one of the.
Yeah. Should have looked through there myself.
No, this is not Schuster. It's, can't read that last name. James Holly?
Yes.
Holly?
Okay.
It's not Schuster.
It's not Schuster.
It's
no.
not Schuster.
It's not, yeah, it's not Schuster on the
Okay.
application.
I will not admit them to this video portion then.
Not a problem. We'll figure this one out yet. It is now 6:55. I'm going to call the next case, which is Mike and Tia Krebs, 8447 Cooley Beach Drive, also identified as 1236-452-008. The applicant wishes to construct a detached garage that requires variances to Article 3.1.6.E R1D, single-family residential for side yard setback, lot width, and to Article 5.7, accessory buildings or structures in residential districts for both roof height and wall height. Let the record reflect. "29 owners within 300 feet were notified of this proposed request. no letters received in favor, 1 letter received in opposition, and no letters returned by United States Mail. And with that, may we have staff report, please?
Absolutely. So again, this property is identified as 8447 Cooley Beach Drive. It's a single-family home zoned R1D. The home's located on in the Cooley Beach sub on Cooley Lake, and the home uses a private well and septic system. You may remember this case from previous meetings. The applicant had originally deviated from an approved building permit for an accessory structure. The result is a garage building that exceeds the height requirements for Article 5.7 accessory structures. After being denied last November, the applicant's back with a plan that's more consistent with the building permit that was issued last June. The proposal reduces the height of the building walls by a foot. Let's see, the garage exceeds the maximum building height for accessory structures. The ordinance allows for walls in an accessory building to be at 14 feet in height. And as it's constructed there, it's 19 feet tall. The total height of the structure is not to exceed 18 feet at the mid peak of the roof. The garage as constructed has a roof height of 21 feet and is 2 stories tall with 8-foot walls in the second story. The applicant has an interior staircase for the second story. The modified structure will have a 14-foot tall wall on one side and 18 feet on the other. The modified structure will also have a roof height of 20.5 feet, which is a half a foot reduction in the roof height. So 1 foot in the wall height, half a foot in the roof height. While the existing structure was built inconsistent with the approved plans and the ordinance, it will be altered to reduce the overall total and wall heights to be more consistent with Article 5.7C accessory structures. And that's basically it. In summary, you can see on the table the number of feet of height requested and permitted, and then the end result. So if there's any questions, I guess I should also point out that the existing lot is a 50-foot lot. This is not a lot that was recently platted or divided, so it's just something that it's probably platted almost 100 years ago. So it's just an existing situation, a legal nonconformity. So it is listed as a variance, but it's not a dimensional variance that the applicant's seeking. So again, in this zoning district, the required lot size is 80 feet, but this applicant only has 50. So we do still list it. If you have any questions for myself or for Nick Spencer, we'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Does anyone have questions of staff or Mr. Spencer? If not, then will the proponent please explain his case to us, or his representative?
Sure, thank you. My name is Clint Kesto, and I'll talk initially and allow Mr. Krups to speak after. As you know, this was a structure that was existing, then was modified, as Sean had indicated. In order to clean it up, it was essentially an eyesore, and Mr. Krups was looking to change it, update it, upgrade it so that it doesn't fall down to the ground, which I think is a good thing. At that time, there was an approval. As he was building the structure, based on how some of the builds came out, there was a little bit of a slight deviation. At that time, there was a stop to build. He had come back to the ZBA and ultimately he was denied. Since that time, however, he's come back with multiple other different architectural designs. And we had a meeting with Sean, with Nick, with Mike Krebs, myself, Lisa Hamama, the city's attorney, was there. The township attorney, I should say, was there. And they essentially looked at some of the updated plans that they had kind of sketched out. And it looked to be, I'm not going to say necessarily in conformity, but however, there would be something that could be done, something that could be accomplished in terms of building. I think part of the key is where we are with how the perception is and the design. There was a structure there that was an eyesore. and Mike Krebs is looking to update that, upgrade it. It's not going to be used as a rental. He's flipping the dormer from one side to the other to accommodate any issues that any neighbors may have, and to also accommodate some of the township's requests. And we're looking, we said, submitted that modification. As far as the specifics, I'll let Mr. Krebs go into exactly what that modification is. But I think after our conversations, it appeared that this would be something that would be palatable and something that could be accepted based on looking at a revision, something that would work for that property, something that can update that that extra structure that was already there without infringing on anyone else's view, property, rights, or anything like that. So, Mike, if you want to go ahead and indicate exactly how we did that conform to what some of the requests were.
Okay, sure. Yeah. I don't know who remembers from last meeting. That was so many months ago. We revised, we met with everyone, as Clint said, and I had a bunch of different designs out there, and none of them were particularly acceptable to everyone at the meeting. So we talked about how we could make it work for everybody. And I think this last design was a compromise from everybody, giving me their input and saying what they will allow and what they won't allow. And I thought we came up with a pretty decent looking design. It lowers one side from 19-foot height to 14 foot, which was conforming. And the other side, even though it is built as the original approved plans show, we're still lowering that, just trying to bring the whole thing down a little bit, make it a little more eye pleasing. Yeah, I think Nick even said he might give me a recommendation for this. I'm not sure how that panned out, but I think everyone was happy with the design when we were done with the meeting. And I did get a letter from a neighbor. I don't know if this is the time to bring it up. A neighbor across the street approached me yesterday and asked me about the garage. They heard stories about it. I'm sure it's been sitting like this for 6 months, more than that, since September. And they gave me a letter and I didn't know what to do with it. I don't know whether I should read it or, what it is exactly.
Mike, can you hold off reading that letter until I open the public hearing up, please?
Okay,
and then
sure.
and then can you also get that letter to the township for the files?
Sure.
Thank you.
I think one other thing that's kind of key to this situation is that there was an actual approval, even though it wasn't necessarily in conformity. Somebody did approve a plan. Since that time, the positions have changed and somebody new came in. I think, Nick, did you take over that spot? There was
Yes.
before you, right?
Yes, and I can speak to this a little bit if you'd like.
Yeah. So there was an approval. Yes. Mike Krebs kind of deviated because of how the structure was being built, and it became a little bit off in order to accommodate in mid-build. But from that time, he's come back and said, here's another plan that can work. And we had that meeting with Sean and Nick. And so now that is what is before you, is that there was an approval. Yes, there wasn't a deviation, but now we're back to a compromise that could fit into that square, into that box that we're looking to get to. And go ahead, Nick. Well, Madam Chair, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Nick, did you have something to add, please?
Yes. As most of you are aware, Brent Bonavere was the building official last year, back in June. I believe it was in June when this was originally approved by Brent. The original approval, as Mike had mentioned, did not fit within the guidelines of the ordinance. His new design that we had gone back and forth on, he had presented several designs and came back to this one that is basically right in line with what was originally approved by Brent Bonnevier back in June. So that wall height of 18 feet on the one side, and the roof height at the 21.5 feet. So basically what was approved was originally deviated from. His new design is going back to what was originally approved. So I just wanted to give everybody that update, make sure they understood the background on it.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for the proponent?
Yes. Do you want us to ask before or after public hearing?
I can do public hearing first if everybody prefers.
Why don't you do that, and then we can ask all the questions at the same time.
Okay, sounds like a plan. With that, I am going to open the public hearing up for the case at 8447 Cooley Beach Drive. If you wish to speak, you must press *9 to be recognized. And I'm going to read one letter into the record, stated March 20th, 2020. It says, Board of Appeals members, this letter is to inform the board that Stephen, and I will spell the name, S like Sam, A-K, M like Mary, I-E, R like Ralph, A, and Janine, same last name, both oppose the request for the variances requested for the meeting date 4/23/2020 and 3/26/2020. Mr. Mike Krebs and Ms. Tia Krebs have not shown a hardship that requires the variances requested. Applicants Mr. and Mrs. Krebs chose to deviate from the original plan provided to the township and have the ability to abide by the current township laws for both roof height and wall height. The current unapproved structure is obtrusive and is not conforming with other homes and garages in our neighborhood. Kindly regards, and it's signed by both. That's the only public hearing item I have in the file, and if anybody wishes to be recognized again, you must press *9 to be recognized.
And Madam Chair, if I may, there are a couple callers in the meeting, and I do not see any virtual hands raised. Again, callers, if you'd like to speak during this period, press *9 on your keypad, and we will be alerted and we will unmute your line. So we have no hands raised at this time.
Thank you. With that, then I will close the public hearing and bring it back.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, we do have one raised.
Oh,
now.
okay. I'm reopening the public hearing then.
So caller with the last four digits of your phone number being 2962, we will unmute your line. Please state your name and address for the record.
Jim Schuster. My name is Jim Schuster. I live at 8453 Cooley Beach Drive. I am the property directly west of this.
And what would you like to tell us, sir? You have 3 minutes in which to do so.
Well, one of the biggest concerns is that this apartment or this structure will be converted to living space. He's expressed that interest to Brent once before and was denied. And I feel that all these goes around about using it for storage is just an end around to get it to be for living space. And again, the township guidelines limit the wall height to 14 feet, and that's mainly to prevent living space. The difference between 14 and 18 is storage and living space. That's one of the things. The other thing is this: if this variance is granted, it will inevitably lead to violation of other township ordinances, particularly 3.7, dwelling in other than main structure, 4.5B, no accessory building be converted into secondary dwelling unit, 4.12K, no sleeping rooms in accessory buildings, and then it'll make it an unlawful structure, which is defined in 3.3. There's also concerns about water runoff. With the 18-foot walls, and that shallow 1.212 pitch, I've seen water blow off of that roof right into my yard, right over the 5-foot setback. And that's another thing. There's building grades 5.8 in the ordinance that states it shall not increase natural runoff of surface water into adjacent properties. And since there's so much cement and he's lost all the ability to absorb it in his own yard, it runs off into the neighboring properties. I know that the township has these ordinances protect the integrities of the neighborhood and, you know, as well as property values, and that's a concern too. You know, our property values, people come by and the first thing they say is like, why do they have a second house by the road? It's bigger. That people comment to me, it's like, oh, it's bigger than their house. It's bigger than houses in the neighborhood. I tell them it's storage and they laugh at me. They said, no, it's another house. And if it were, you know, the neighboring structures, it needs to conform with that. I've heard him cite in the past that my structure as well as the one east of him are giant structures. Well, both of those fall well within conformance of the township guidelines.
Thank you.
Sure.
Is there any other one from the public that's indicating that they now wish to speak, Ken?
Again, there is another caller, star 9 caller, if you would like to speak. If you would like to alert us that you would like to speak. And I'm not seeing any virtual hand raised at this point, Madam Chair.
Okay, then the public hearing is closed.
Madam Chair, if I may, I apologize. I think Mr. Krebs had that letter from a neighbor.
Is this the time?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Clint. Yes, for the record, please read that into the, thanks.
Okay. From Zachary Dieck. Deck.
Spell it.
D-I-E-C-K.
Thank you.
His address is 8464 Cooley Beach Drive. I've never met this person. You know, his mom stopped me yesterday or day before and said that they wanted to write a letter about this, what's going on with this garage, if they could. And I said, sure, that'd be great.
Sure. For the public record.
I have lived at Cooley Beach for the majority of my life. Recently has come to my attention that White Lake Township has put a hold on the project that the neighbors began last fall. I do not personally know the homeowners or how long they have been part of the White Lake community. What I can tell you is that they have built a beautiful home and has not only increased our aesthetics of the community, but also added value to the neighborhood. From the information I have received, the owner of the property is requesting a variance on his garage. I live almost directly across the street from the homeowner, and in no way has his structure caused any difficulties, complications, or impairments to the neighborhood. I'd like to encourage White Lake to allow him to complete his project without delay or further cost to him or the taxpayers of White Lake.
Thank you. And please make sure that we get a copy of that for our file. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I may interrupt for a moment, the other caller has raised their hand.
Yes, go right ahead then.
Caller with the last 4 digits of 8885, we will unmute you. Please state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Terry Macroff, 8421 Cooley Beach Drive. I'd just like to say that if you approve that eyesore, you're going to just get in a real conglomeration here, because everybody else in this neighborhood is going to start doing the same thing. So why don't you just hold us to our rights and keep the neighborhood as it should be, and not allow something obnoxious like it's sitting there. That's it.
Thank you. Any more, Ken?
There are no other callers, Madam Chair.
And the public hearing is now officially closed. And I'm bringing it back to the board. If anybody has any comments.
I do. Just like to loop back. I know I had some pretty strong feelings about this when we first talked about it. So I just want to refresh everybody's memory, and if they weren't part of this initial conversation. I still believe this comes down to a matter of integrity of the township. If we approve something, we need to stand behind our word, whether we like something or not. We approved something. Yes, the homeowner deviated from it, but I'm hearing now the homeowner has gone back within the initial thing that was approved. You know, there are going to be issues. There's going to be questions perhaps that are being raised here, aesthetics, whatever else. That's a different part of this conversation. For me, it's been approved. Yes, it deviated. It has come back within. And not only that, but it wasn't just that it was approved, but the homeowner invested resources in that approved situation. I'm concerned about our integrity when we say go ahead and do something, but then after somebody's invested, it feels we change our mind. I don't think that we can set that precedent.
Thank you. Any other board members wish to speak on this now?
Joe, I would like to
Yes.
ask some questions.
Yes, Mike, please do.
If I could start with building official Spencer, please. Nick, do the plans identify that whether or not there's going to be a water or sanitary sewer run to this building?
I have not seen any plans that indicate that, no.
All right, then I'll turn to the owner. Is it your intent to extend sanitary sewer or water into this structure?
I had hoped to bring water out there to put a spigot in the, you know, because it's to wash cars, and maybe put a mop sink in the garage. But
And how would that drain, Mr. Krebs?
I'd probably have to put a drain in there to go to the, I haven't planned on doing it yet, or I haven't done anything with it yet because I don't know if I can even do it.
Well, yes. So that would make an indication that whether or not your intent was to make it habitable. You can drain it. You can drain something with a leaching basin and allow it to perk into the ground versus running sanitary sewer. And if I'm going to support this, I'm going to request that whoever makes the motion include the fact that there will be no sanitary sewer services brought to this building. If there was, my next question was going to be, does the Oakland County Health Department know that? And that would be a whole nother issue that you would have to face if that were to take place. I did have a question for Mr. Clint Kesto. In your presentation, Mr. Kesto, you said that it has been modified, the structure is, the plans for the structure have been modified per the township's request. Is that maybe an inappropriate statement, or is it that it was discussed and it was modified based upon a conference or something?
I think, and I'll defer to Ms. Hamama on this, but we had conversations and these are the plans that we came up with. But if she wants to comment further, I think that it would be her ability.
I was just wondering if there was truth in the fact that the township actually requested changes to the plan that might entice us to grant an approval because the township requested something versus a voluntary change per the owner.
I think it was more a discussion of what can be palatable and what can work within the guidelines of there having been an approval, a prior approval, and looking in the context of that.
Okay, Lisa, did you have anything to say?
No, I mean, that really was, and I think, you know, there was some pending litigation.
Okay.
And in an effort to resolve that litigation, at least for the time being, we coordinated a meeting where the attorneys, myself, Mr. Kesto, and Mr. Krebs, Sean O'Neill and Nick Spencer attended, and we really kind of walked through what the issues were and and actually discussed how they might be modified to make it a lesser request of a variance and also bring it back in line to the site plan that was approved by Brent, right or wrong, back in June.
Okay.
And as a
thank you.
result of that discussion, they submitted a new plan.
And I would add that you can't bring the same request back to the ZBA, and I think that's kind of where Lisa was going. They had really an unsuccessful request, so it wouldn't make sense to bring a request that was more imposing or more in conflict with the ordinance. So instead, they went back in the other direction, changed the orientation, reduced the height to bring it, closer into compliance.
All right, thank you. And then certainly it doesn't sound as though it's their intent to make this habitable space. The code does identify what the space needs to contain in order to be defined as a habitable space. Therefore, I'm not interpreting this as an apartment or a living space. It appears that they have moved the high part of the roof over to the west side of the building so that, and I'm just speculating here, that there's enough headroom for the stairway, and I'm jealous of the stairway. I'd love to have that stairway in my home, so that the stairway is a little more usable on the west side. And then to mitigate that, it looks as though they've dropped the roof line on the east side and brought it much more in compliance. The concern of one of the residents of the natural or the rain runoff, in my opinion, would be hard to demonstrate. Rain comes down at the same rate no matter where it falls. And yeah, there's a little more impervious surface on this site, but none of the variance requests that are being requested tonight will add to the runoff. And so I appreciate the concern, but I don't believe that in our preview, we have the ability to change the amount of runoff from the site. It appears that the proposed drawing is a substantial, is certainly less intrusive than what I observed when this case first came before the ZBA. It was a very large structure that jumped right out at you, and the blue tarps didn't help any either, of course. I believe that the owners started the structure in good faith with assuming the validity of the initially issued building permit. They got a little carried away, but I believe they probably brought it back in to within or below in compliance of the previously approved permit. I'm tending to lean towards the approval. I think it's quite frankly, a very nice looking structure. It's certainly going to be an improvement over the old original structure that was there. Maybe a little larger than some of the neighbors would like, but I believe the variances that are being requested now will actually reduce the intrusion of the existing structure. And that's it, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this?
Madam Chair, if I could point out a couple of things really quick. It sounds like there's a concern potentially about living space above.
Yes.
Any motion could contain some language that restricts this from being living space. You could restrict, them from having any plumbing installed in sinks and things like that too. And also, if there is a concern about capturing some of that runoff and directing it to the lake, we've got thousands of properties that are on lakefront lots in this township, and almost all of them are non-conforming in width. And almost always when there is a variance request of the ZBA, there is a condition to have gutters on the sides of the homes to kind of channel that water, and then have the downspouts connected to kind of an underground drain that takes the water toward the lake and kind of keeps it away from the neighbor, which actually could improve the stormwater situation over what may be existing on site at that time. So that's something else you might want to consider.
Thank you. Board members, Are we ready for a motion?
I'm happy to make the motion.
Thank you.
And I will just ask this before I do it. Mike, you had mentioned some sanitation language. I may need your assistance when I get to that part.
Yes.
Okay. I move to approve the variance requested by Mike and Tia Krebs for 8447 Cooley Beach Drive, identified as 12-36-452-008 in order to finish the construction of a detached garage. The variances requested are as follows, and I'm moving my pages here. Variance number 1, Article 5.7.c, subject wall height permitted 14 feet, requested variance 4 feet, and results 18 feet. Variance number 2, ordinance section Article 5.7.c, building height permitted 18-foot mid-peak, requested variance 2.5 feet, and results 20.5 feet. Variance number 3, ordinance section Article 3.1.6, subject required lot width permitted 80 feet, requested variance 30 feet, and results 50 feet, with the following conditions. That the upstairs space will not be used as living space. That's number 1. Number 2, that some type of gutter system will move the water away from falling towards the neighbor's property. And 3, Mr. Powell, how do I word the sanitation piece?
No sanitary sewer services will be extended to the structure, period.
No sanitary services will be extended to the structure.
Now that's to be understood. No sanitary sewer services, water.
Sewer
I don't.
Services.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with water, and you can deal with that with a dry well or some kind of leaching basin, something like that.
And that is my motion.
Okay, and do we have a support?
Support.
For the record, just really quick, this is not on sewer. I believe this is still on septic, just so, I don't know if you wanted to include any connection to a septic or a sewer system, so it covered both.
It's the same definition for both. It's sanitary sewer services, and so it's understood that it's draining the water into a sewer or septic system.
Perfect.
And Mike, you had mentioned when you talked of gutters to direct it towards the lake. Should that be mentioned in the motion as well?
No, I don't think so. I think the motion is clear that it has to be dealt with instead of being directed towards the neighbor's property. My problem with a motion like directing it towards the lake, we as a township would like to limit the amount of stormwater that's directed right into a lake because it's polluted. And so they can put it into leaching basins, they can drop it out into pop-ups further down their yard, but it should be directed away from the neighbor as the motion stated.
Okay, thank you.
And to complete my motion, applicant will pull all necessary permits with a White Lake Township Building Department.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May we then, Hannah, have a roll call vote, please?
Sure. DeHart?
Second.
Yes, because the applicant is now bringing the plans back to the original approval.
Powell?
Yes, I'm in full agreement with the practical difficulty, and it has now been modified at or below the original approved plans.
Shellac?
Yes, the applicant was initially approved, and this, in my interpretation, falls within the initial approval.
Walls?
Yes, because it's an improvement over the existing structure and for the reasons stated.
Spencer?
Yes, I see a practical difficulty. The proponent is going back to the original plan, which had a permit issued about a year or so ago. It's reduced the intrusiveness and it's an improvement to the area. And with that, Mr. and Mrs. Krebs, you have 6 months in which to finish following through to pull the permit. You'll need a rough draft copy of the minutes. I don't know what the time frame is going to be on that now. Hannah, can you help me with that?
Probably by Monday. Monday's good.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I want to make sure you have enough time. So you can pull the rough draft on Monday. You will need that in order to go back to the building department. And I'm assuming that you'll probably still have to call the township in order to make an appointment to be into this building, to talk to the building department. Is that right, Nick?
That's correct.
Or, okay, thank you. So with that, you do have your approval. Good luck.
Thank you. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So the permit that's issued I need a different permit now? An additional permit?
No, your permit will be fine. We just need to go over everything, make sure we have all the exact drawings and everything. I believe you've submitted everything, but we just need to discuss.
Okay. Okay. Come in Monday then. I'll make an appointment.
Sounds
Thank
great.
you.
Congratulations.
All right. Thank you.
And with the time being 7:32, we have a short span of time before our next case is called.
That is right. We'll try to be back on at 7:40 to be ready to go. So that's about 7-8 minutes.
Yes.
The United States called me while we were on this meeting. It must be important.
That sounds pretty important, Nicholas.
I know. Whew, they all 360 million of them need something.
You are so fortunate.
Woo! Well, I have been getting a lot more calls during this time, but that pushes it to an absurd extreme. Wow. So, Joe, has your church started a phase regather plan at all, or have you begun that conversation?
No, the Presbytery would rather we wait quite a while before we start, the Presbytery of Detroit. So
Yeah.
we're not anxious. It is the hope of some of us. The first part of August is our anniversary. In fact, we will be 100, I believe, in 85 years this
Wow.
August. So we're kind of hoping we could at least have an outdoor service for our anniversary. But, as with governments, all entities, it's the powers to be. And with our congregation, most of them are, well, let's just say I'm one of the younger ones.
They're in the vulnerable,
Yeah.
vulnerable population.
We
Yes.
are. We are very much an aging congregation, and we want to make absolutely certain. So we don't have the facilities of a lot of the larger churches to do a traditional service through a Zoom or on Facebook. So what we've done is our office administrator, who is now an actual lay minister. She's not yet been ordained, but she's taken the classes and has passed. She every day goes online to Facebook and does some sort of a daily meditation. Our organist, because we were granted some grants in order for us to continue paying her, she's very kind. Every other day or so, she comes in and she plays a couple of musical pieces for us. Some of the choir members that are talented have also contributed. So we're getting involved. And then on Sunday, the office administrator, Debbie, ends up, usually she does some sort of a meditation service for us. So,
yeah.
And we know that we tell all of our people, just because another church may not be Presbyterian, it may be Lutheran or Methodist or or Catholic, if they're doing anything online and you want to attend some sort of a traditional service, by all means, we're not worried we're going to lose a few members.
Yeah, we've actually strategically and strategic for the other people reached out to, I think, three other Lutheran churches and one Episcopal church. And we've invited their pastors, their priests to, let me take a step back. We do our scripture readings and other things. People do them in their homes. Rather than one lector doing all of them, we actually divide them up as much as possible so you get as many faces every week as you can,
Wow.
because there's a value to seeing each other when we're not, and so in some cases it'll be a priest or a deacon, pastor from another church, and then their people. It's not a matter of us, taking them in. It's a matter of us really reaching out to them, and
right.
And so I'll often open up the worship announcements with. Thank you for those who have landed with us for this time until you can regather in your own buildings. And it's been really incredible to see people work together.
Could you send me that link by email one of these days?
Yeah, and I'll even say it on. Am I allowed to share a church website at a?
I don't know.
Yeah, I will tell you this. I happen to serve as senior pastor at Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church in Bloomfield Hills, Michigan.
That is a beautiful church.
It is a beautiful church. But yeah, so it's I can get that to you. It's been really, really exciting to see people's gifts pop up, and for years, forever long, we always say, any community of faith, not just a church, but that it's not the building, it's the people. And, and the way that we're looking at it now is it's kind of like the question's been called, do we really believe what we've been saying all these years?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And, our situation at our church has been the same. We lost our minister. So we parted with him late last year.
Okay.
So we don't have a minister to minister us, although we have surrounding churches that other Presbyterian churches definitely are coming to our aid, but so are some of the other non-denominational ones and the traditional ones as well.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair, if I could interrupt for just a moment. So in the waiting room right now, we have an unfamiliar computer ID. As you can see, if anybody might know who this is, JV iPad. Is that a person that should be part of this video participation?
It could be. I don't know if it's Jim who is their builder. Maybe that person. Can he hear you right now or no?
No. Well, unless he's watching on YouTube, he could hear me.
I am not. I'm looking through the file now in hopes of finding something.
And I'm looking through the emails that were sent. I don't see a JV iPad as one of the names to look for.
Yeah, I'm looking at the application, and that is not indicated on here as a I have a Robert email, a Jim email, and a Melissa email.
I think that might be Jim on the iPad. Somebody called today and they were talking about joining, but I don't know.
I don't know either.
Okay. There was one other person here, a Kayla Chase.
I don't know.
Okay. So again, if these people are watching the live feed on YouTube, please call in via the traditional telephone. The numbers are listed on the White Lake website. I do have the number here handy. It's 312-626-6666. 6799 and enter the meeting ID and participant code.
Yeah, I would like really quick to mention the builder license that we have on file is James Vilux, which JV
Yeah.
makes sense.
Looking, but you
Yeah.
feel free.
I think that is correct. I think he and Robert are going to be joining together, so I believe that call-in is Jim.
Okay. So we'll go ahead and admit JV iPad and see if we can get a quick confirmation of them.
I don't know. I was looking at the top of the application and there's 3 emails up there,
Yeah.
but
I know this Robert Rawa is one of them. He's one of the builders. He's this Robert.
okay.
This Robert Rawa.
Hello, JV iPad. Could you please state your name and address for the record?
You know, if we do more of these Zoom, like next month, it might be helpful if I have the names of everybody within 300 feet.
Okay.
You know, we used to get them before, they would just like run off a sheet with the names.
JV iPad, I can see you're trying to connect to the audio.
That would help.
I'd like to share what I have with everyone.
Oh, my.
That's kind of mean, Mike.
Well,
What was that? I missed it.
Hi, guys. This is Jim
Oh,
J.U.
oh, come on.
Hi, Jim. Is Jim the builder then, I assume?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
This
good.
is JV iPad. I'm sorry. It was my only device.
Oh,
I didn't know
okay.
I had to have a
Jim.
specific device.
Bayulo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Bayu.
Okay.
Bayu with a V, Madam Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, he is who he says he is.
Okay, good deal.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank
My
you.
wife doesn't often say that, but thank you.
Well, maybe I know something she doesn't know. How about that? Like I've got your
All
builder's
right.
license in front of me.
There you go. All right.
We have about 2 minutes before this case is being called. You've just joined us now, Jim. We're on a time schedule that's been published in the papers. And so we really can't start the case for another 2 minutes. So,
No problem.
okay, appreciate that.
For the IT gentleman, can you actually switch from an iPad? Can you? Yep, I just see the button. You can switch it if I wanted to show you something.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want a screen share, you have that permission. If you know how to do it, you hit screen share, and then it'll give you kind of a list of applications that you have open.
Okay, well, one shows me that I can switch my camera to the front and the back. So if I switched it to the back camera, I could show what you guys have are my plans and kind of try to make them a little more simplified through.
I've not heard of that being done, but if it's giving you that option, we can certainly experiment with it. We've got 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'm going to do it right now if that's okay. So yeah, it turned, I don't know if you guys can see me yet, but I just turned it backwards and it's showing backwards. So that would allow me to show my whiteboard.
Yeah, we're seeing, it looks like an electronic device and some water bottles.
That's it. That's it. That's not what I want to show you, but thank you for telling me to clean up my desk. Yes, that works. Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Jim, will anybody else be joining or just you tonight?
I have Robert in the room with me, and he's my partner, and we're representing Dan and Kayla.
Okay, so the homeowners are not going to be joining tonight.
Well, they're supposed to be calling in, it's my understanding, but they're
Okay.
not in the same room as we are.
Okay.
And
Do we
with
have
that,
the homeowner's name, Sean? I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
that's okay.
It's, you asking me? I'm sorry.
Yeah, anybody that would know them, because we have some people in the
Dan
waiting room.
Grimes,
Okay.
Dan Grimes, and Kayla Casey.
Yes, we do have Kayla. It's C-H-A-S-E, correct? It looks like Chase.
Yes, Chase. I'm sorry. I misspoke. I'm looking at something. Yes, I misspoke. That is correct.
No problem. I'm letting Kayla in now. We just need to get confirmation of her video and audio. Kayla, if you can hear, please accept the start video and audio just for the moment.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and, well, they're the case right now. Is that correct, Madam Chair?
I have yet to call it, but I'm about to when you're done, Ken.
Okay, I'm going to jump on out then and let me know if you need anything.
Thank you. This case is Creative Custom Builders. Their location is 7655 Highland Road, Suite 202 in Waterford, Michigan, 48327. The location of the property in question is 10126 Elizabeth Lake Road. Quest is the applicant wishes to construct a new home with an attached garage that requires variances to Article 3.1.5.e R1C Single Family Residential for front yard setback, lot size, and lot width. For the record, 23 owners within 300 feet were notified of the proposed request. No letters received in favor, no letters received in opposition, no letters returned non-deliverable by United States mail. As I stated when I opened this meeting up, the proponent will have 20 minutes in which to give his case. The board will then ask questions. I will then open the public hearing. The public hearing will commence. I will close the public hearing. We will bring it back to the board for discussion and a motion. And with that, Sean, we have our staff report.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. The property again is at 10126 Elizabeth Lake Road. It's zoned R1C Single Family Residential. This parcel is located on Oxbow Lake. The new home that is proposed to be constructed would utilize a private well for water and the township sanitary sewer system for sanitation. The parcel is non-conforming in both lot area and width, and that's a pre-existing condition, and those are two of the three variances that were mentioned and listed below. The applicant wishes to obtain variances that would allow them to reconstruct the home and utilize the existing foundation. They wish to utilize the existing basement foundation on the hillside that is on their site. They have designed the home with a side entry garage to provide more room for parking off of the road and allow for vehicles to have safer forward access to the road when leaving the side entry garage. The applicant maintains that the house is being placed consistent with that of the neighboring homes. They do not want to negatively impact their neighbors' views or drainage by moving closer to the lake. So again, the applicant wishes to obtain the variances for this lot, and they are listed again, numbers 2 and 3, which are lot area and lot width, are existing, and that would be they're required to have a lot area of 16,000 square feet. They have 10,106 square feet. They are required to have 100 feet in width in the zoning district. They have 60. And then the one that they really are truly seeking tonight that isn't a pre-existing condition that can't really be changed with their lot is variance number 1, which is a 19-foot variance from a front yard setback. So the end result is 16 feet. 35 feet is required. They're proposing 16 feet. So again, it would be a 19-foot variance. If you have any questions, please let us know. And certainly you can see their full application and the layout of their proposed home on the site.
Thank you. Quick question for you, Sean. So I'm assuming that by having a side entry, this is going to become a more safe way of developing this rather than straight through, or?
I think so. Usually when we see setback variances, front yard setback variances, one of the concerns is always the distance of, from like the garage door to the traveled portion of the road. In this case, that really doesn't become an issue anymore because the door, faces the side. There's plenty of extra driveway room to maneuver and for, extra off-street guest parking, things like that. So, I think that in a situation where you're too close to the road, we prefer it be side entry because it just does give that much more room to maneuver, as well as was mentioned by the application, it's safer to pull out. They're not pulling out onto a subdivision street. They're pulling out onto a very busy road. I don't know how many thousands of vehicle trips a day Elizabeth Lake Road carries off the top of my head, but I believe it's north of 10,000 vehicle trips a day. So, I think it's important that, not only for the applicants and their guests, but for the driving public, that people aren't backing out into traffic in front of them, if that can be avoided.
And health, safety, and welfare are some of our main concerns with this board. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions for staff?
I have a question. What is the current setback on the home now?
Jim may have that more readily available than I. There's an overlay. If you go down to the survey, or the sketch, which is one of the last pages. Looks like, I've got to zoom in here. Joe has my.
Do you want me to run it down to you?
No, I think I can.
Awful small print.
It is small print. Jeez, oh Pete, can you see it, Joe, on or Jim, do you have that? It looks like 35, looks like it's 35 feet to the front of the new portion of the house, and it's the garage.
Yeah, if I can, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Sean.
No, go ahead.
If I can interrupt, there is an existing portion of the house that's been there the 22 years I've been there. And it appears that it's about a 29-foot setback currently, plus or minus.
Yes, that's right, because there's the 16 feet that are proposed, and then there's a 23.1, it looks like, for the proposed garage. So that would be about 39.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the home meets the setback, the new home structure. It's the garage that encroaches further out.
Any other questions? If not, then will a proponent give us a rundown on what they want to do here and an explanation, please?
Sure. Again, this is Jim Vayu with Creative Custom Builders. We're representing the homeowners, Dan Grimes and Kayla Chase. And I happen to not only be the builder, but I'm the next door neighbor, directly to the left of them, directly southwest. Anyways, what we are, Sean did a great job of explaining the facts, and that's really what we're trying to do. Is the house, in order to really update it to create any value to the house, which this young couple wants to do, and they want to have a family in there and make it a lifetime home, not a rental or anything like that, we looked at multiple scenarios, but the least impactful approach, we believe, is keeping the existing foundation, putting a new structure on top, raising the foundation with a couple blocks, putting a new structure on top, and adding a small, reasonable two-car garage. And the reason for that is the money invested in the existing house plus the cost of a new house. There would be no value if you would never sell the house if you couldn't have a garage. And it's a very modest garage. With that being said, we have designed it specifically as a side entry garage so we can create a wing. And I'm going to try my little trick, if you guys can be patient with me here, and see if you can see my, I don't know if that's too far away. It probably is, isn't it? You can't see my screen, can you?
I can.
Oh, you can? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'm going to try then. So currently the house comes out to here, if you can see my red dot.
Yes.
And what we're proposing, so the garage literally is almost the portion we're asking is really a little less than half of the garage. But what we've done after getting some good impact or feedback rather from our engineers, as well as our designers, and then my 35 years of experience, we'll create a little wing back here. So when they pull out, they can turn around and go forward. I live next door directly. I'm right here, and I don't have, well, I actually have the ability because I got a turnaround, but I almost always have a vehicle or a trailer in there, unfortunately. So I do have to back out often, and it is without exaggeration, extremely dangerous. So we're trying to accomplish a couple things. We can, in fact, move the house closer to the lake, but unfortunately, I believe that's very impractical because what it will do is impact the visual lines from both the neighbors, one being me, one being the neighbor to the other side. And actually, it's a bay, so it curls around a little bit, so it might impact even more than the neighbors on the side. So we thought the best scenario would keep the footprint exactly where it's at, remove some of that front that already encroaches into the front yard setback, put in the garage, and make it a safer egress and ingress, and more value to the community. Not to mention for the homeowners, Dan and Kayla.
Thank you. Does any board member have any questions for the applicant? If not, I'd like to open the public hearing. If you wish to speak on this case, you must press *9 in order to be recognized. This is a case of Creative Home Builders at 10126 Elizabeth Lake Road. So do we have any public that wish to speak? Ken?
Madam Chair, we have no phone callers in the meeting at this point.
Thank you. With that, then I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Does anybody have any questions, any discussion?
Madam Chairman,
Yes, please, Mike.
if no one else has any comments, I just wanted to point out a couple things that the applicant and the builder seem to represent that the home in reality, it could be moved closer to the lake. I believe a very good case that could be made that there is a practical difficulty for two reasons. Number one, it makes a great deal of sense for them to try to use the existing foundation. Not only does that keep the structure within the location of the existing home, but it does not then impact the adjacent rights of the or the rights of the adjacent riparian owners and blocking their view of the lake more. It's very important to lakefront owners, of course. I can't disagree with the presentation either that and I think this discussion would be totally different if this were a front entry garage. Backing out onto Elizabeth Lake Road, it would scare me in doing it. And so the side entry garage, and I think they've engineered that very well. I also was out there and walked up and down the road and looked up and down the road, and then I have the aerial available, and it does not, it's not different than a great number of the homes both east and west of this site. So it would not be obtrusive to the neighborhood. And unless my colleagues have some other issues, I would be inclined to support this.
Thank you. Anybody else for any discussion? If there is none, is anybody prepared to make a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Dave.
I move to approve the variance requested by Creative Customer Builders for 10126 Elizabeth Lake Road, identified as 12-27-226-015, in order to construct a new home. The variances requested are as follows. Variance number 1, or ordinance section article 3.1.5, subject front yard setback, required 35 feet, requested variance 19 feet, end result 16 feet. Variance number 2, ordinance section article 3.1.5, subject lot area, required 16,000 feet, requested variance 5,894 square feet, end result 10,106 square feet. Number 3, ordinance section article 3.1.5, subject required lot width, required 100 feet, requested variance 40 feet, end result 60 feet.
If I could stop you just for a second, David.
Yes, sir.
Would you be willing to add in to the motion another request, and that's that he's doing some paving and he's adding some impervious surface in the front yard setback area. If we could just add that that area could be guttered as well, and the water off the roof of the extension and that portion of the house, and quite frankly should be down both sides, but at least this side be run towards the lake with an underground storm sewer towards the lake side instead of running it into Elizabeth Lake Road right of way.
Okay, if you want to add those comments on my behalf, I would welcome that.
Yeah, so the last condition is that the home on the east, the roof line along the east side of the house be guttered and downspouted with a solid storm sewer system run towards the lake. Period.
Thank you, Mike. In addition to that, applicant will pull all necessary permits with the White Lake Township Building Department.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have a support?
I'll
Support. Oh, go ahead, Debbie.
Two supports. I'll support.
Thank you. May we have a roll call vote, Hannah?
Yep. DeHart,
Yes, I think it will improve the home and the area, and the lot is a non-conforming lot.
Powell,
Yes, for the same reasons.
Black,
Nick, you're muted.
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Walls,
Yes, it will be an improvement over the existing conditions for ingress and egress, which will make it safer for occupants when pulling out onto Elizabeth Lake Road.
and Spencer.
Yes, I see a practical difficulty. This is a non-conforming lot, and to using the foundation that's existing is going to eliminate and block the blocking of view of the surrounding areas, and the side yard entry into the garage is eliminating a lot of the necessity for accidents, and it becomes something that is more safe. And with that, you have your approval. You have 6 months in which to pull the permit, or you're back before us again, which we wouldn't mind, but I'm sure you would. And
Thank you,
Hannah tells me that she should have a rough draft set copy of the minutes by Monday. So you want to make a call to the township for an appointment so you can come in and get both the minutes and then take over from the building department.
Very well. Thank you, Madam Chair and ladies and gentlemen. We appreciate your time very much.
Thank you.
And your being so reasonable. That's very much appreciated.
Thank
Not
you.
the norm these days.
We're getting a reputation.
Yeah, we are.
No, I didn't mean with you. I just
Teasing.
meant
I'm
in
kidding.
general.
I'm kidding. Take care. Congratulations.
Yes.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And with that, we have 25 more minutes before the, or actually 30 minutes before the next case.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we are scheduled to be back at what time?
go for, well, 8:35 is when the next case is being called, Dave. And
We'll
it's
say 8:30.
5 after now.
Okay, a couple things I have to do, so I'll be back around 8:30.
All right.
Thank you.
Again, just as a reminder, we are continuing to stream live to YouTube.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, Don? Hi, Sean, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Madam Chair, we have you muted. Sean, while she's unmuting, we do have a few people in the waiting room. We have Julie Cole Calhoun. Should that name be in this meeting?
I don't recognize that name. Just one sec.
What was the name again, Ken?
Julie Cole Calhoun.
Not in any of my paperwork here in front of me.
That's not a name that we have on the list.
Okay, next name is, it's a continuous Gmail email, Dana Tave? Danar Tave? Danartaev.
Yes, he is representing the applicant.
Okay, and Lauren Wardrop.
She is the applicant.
Okay. Hi, is it Dana?
Dan Artave. Hi.
Okay, hi, welcome. We just want to get a quick audio and video check of you. You sound and look great.
Thank you.
So ask Lauren to do the same here. And are we expecting anyone else?
I don't think so, actually.
Like Lauren is still connecting.
Ken, I did speak to a couple neighbors and they were planning on calling in.
There's Lauren. Lauren, we can see you. We're just waiting to get audio confirmation of your feed. And then Michael, you advised them that the telephone call-in was the approach?
That is correct.
Excellent, thank you. Lauren, I can see that the system is still working to connect your audio. Hopefully it'll just be another moment here. Okay. Lauren, I just sent you a command to unmute your audio now. You accept that? We should be able to hear you.
Hello?
Hello, there we go. Awesome. Okay, Madam Chair, do we have our full complement?
I think all our board members are back with us.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and jump out. Let me know if you need anything.
Thank you, sir. It is 8:35. I am calling the case of James and Lauren Waldrop, whose address currently is at 7080 Oakley Park in West Bloomfield. The location is 725 Ranveen Drive in White Lake. The request is the applicant wishes under Article 7.36 Powers of Zoning Board of Appeals concerning administrative review and variance to appeal a determination of a township official regarding the interpretation of both the basement and grade definitions in the zoning ordinance. Before I ask staff to give their report, I'd like to add to what I read when I opened the meeting up earlier. The proponent will have 20 minutes in which to plead their case. The board will ask questions. We will then go to a public hearing. The public hearing, each person will have 3 minutes in which to voice their opinions. I will close the public hearing. It will then be brought back to the board for determination, discussion, and a motion. And with that, may we have staff report, please?
Let me unmute. There we go. Thank you. Madam Chair, good job with your summary again. The interpretation is being sought for property at 725 Ranveen. This is a vacant parcel. It's a double lot that is zoned R1C single family residential. The parcel is located on Cedar Island Lake any home that is constructed would utilize a private well for water and a septic system for sanitation. The petitioner wishes to appeal under Article 7.36 of the zoning ordinance a determination of a township official of both the basement and grade definitions of the zoning ordinance. The original interpretations now under appeal were made by Brent Bonnevier, former building official, and Jason Icoangeli, former senior planner. There is also a denial letter that was issued from Nick Spencer, our current building official. The applicant's attorney has provided a lengthy pack of information for your review. Our report will be brief and include really basically the communications that I've mentioned above, and many of those things have already been provided to you in the applicant's packet. Nick and I are here to participate and answer any questions you might have regarding this case and zoning ordinance 58. And we do share the opinion that the original interpretations by Brent and Jason are indeed correct. And that's all I have. I don't know if Nick wants to add anything at this point.
Nick, do you have any other comments you'd want at this time? Guess he
Nick,
doesn't.
you're muted.
Oh,
Sorry about that. No, I think you explained everything well.
thank you. Then with that, do board members have any questions for staff before we turn it over to the proponent?
Not at this time, I don't.
Thank you. Then with that, sir, feel free to start.
All right, thank you very much. My name is Dan Artave. I'm the attorney who filed this appeal on behalf of the property owners. Thank you for the summary, and I'd like to thank the board for taking the time on this Thursday evening to be here. This is actually my first time being on a Zoom ZBA appeal meeting, so it's a little bit different. I think we're all dealing with the new challenge, so you know, it's an interesting experience, that's for sure. So originally, actually, we filed this appeal back in January, and we were supposed to be on the board agenda for February, and then everything got canceled because of COVID. So again, we're happy to be here. As Mr. O'Neill summarized correctly, we are asking the board to interpret the zoning ordinance and determine whether or not the plans submitted by the property owners in this matter are indeed for a two-story single-family home, which is permitted under the zoning ordinance, or whether, like the White Lake Building Department determined, it's actually a three-story home because of the way the basement is laid out. Now, I don't know whether or not you have the plans in front of you, or I can make reference to the plans that were submitted as Exhibit 3 with the application.
I believe we've all received a packet, sir.
Okay, so if you take a look at your packet, I want you to just, if you could, take a look at page 25, which is the fourth page of the plan submitted, and you'll see its exterior elevations. And I think that's a very useful view to take a look at, because in the lower left-hand corner, it shows rear elevation, and it's a really good view of what the basement construction looks like. Now, again, if you look at the plans, looks like a standard two-story home with a basement. There's an egress window shown at the lower left-hand side. The basement, as it's proposed, is not a walkout. Again, that's a window well in the lower left-hand corner. What we were told by the building department, again, as Mr. O'Neill already summarized, is that the basement is actually considered a third story in this instance. And even though it's below ground in this instance, it still constitutes a third story. We disagree with that interpretation, and the zoning ordinance, just by way of background, does require that basements be at least 50% below ground to not count against the maximum two-story limit. And again, that makes sense because you don't want somebody going out building the first floor of their house a foot below the surface and then claiming that that's actually a basement. Now, again, this is not the case here. but the rule does make sense. And so to determine the measurement of where you determine if a story is counted against the story limit or whether it's actually a basement, the zoning ordinance makes reference to this term, quote unquote, grade. And grade is actually defined in Article 2 of the zoning ordinance. And that's where essentially we disagree with the building department, where we disagree as to the interpretation of the term grade and how it should be applied to this particular set of construction plans. Now, if you take a look at the definition of grade in Article 2, and that's something that I highlighted for you in the narrative accompanying the application. Again, the applicant's position is where you should measure the grade from, or the height of the basement, is from where the wall meets the ground of the actual building. The building department takes the position that the grade should actually be measured from the street level, which of course is lower than where the house wall meets the ground, because you have a slope going away from the house, so you don't have water pooling towards the house and flooding the house. That actually makes sense, and I believe that's another part of the zoning ordinance that's required. Now, if we take a look at the definition of grade in Article 2, we believe that definition supports our position that the grade should be measured from where the wall meets the ground and not from the street level. The very first sentence says, quote, "The established grade of the street or sidewalk shall be the elevation of the top of the curb at the midpoint of the front lot." Now, that's a definition of grade that the building department is applying. But again, the words used in the ordinance are of the street or sidewalk, the grade of the street or sidewalk. We're not talking about the grade of the street or sidewalk. If you go to the third sentence, that's where we're actually drawing our interpretation from. And that language starts, "When the word grade is used herein in relation to building grade," and that's what we're arguing, the word grade should be used in relation to building grade, "it shall mean the ground where it meets or is intended to meet the foundation wall, unless such has been officially established." So again, our argument is because our grade has nothing to do with the street or sidewalk, we're measuring grade for the purposes of determining the depth of a basement, again, in relation to a building, to determine whether or not the basement is sufficiently far below ground. We're relying on the second definition of grade as it relates to building grade. So we argue that instead of measuring from the street, which is about 2 feet lower than the level of the foundation, it should be measured from the actual foundation. And if you get that measurement, we do meet the criteria. Our basement is more than 50% below ground, and we would be considered a 2-story house under the ordinance. Now, one final thing that I want to point out is that in the definition of grade, there's this last sentence that applies to walkout basements. And under the ordinance, walkout basements are not considered a separate story and would not count against your story limit. Again, what the Wardrops are proposing, that's not a walkout basement. That's your regular basement below ground with a window well. So the last sentence reads, "In the case where the grade changes around the structure with relation to the first floor elevation, such as a 2-story house with a walkout or daylight basement, the walkout or daylight basement shall not be considered a story, nor included in the height calculation." And the reason that I point that out is, again, if the Wardrops were to have a walkout basement, then we'd be okay, because this last sentence would apply and the walkout basement would not count against the story limit. But because of the buildings department's interpretation of where the grade should be counted from, this more traditional basement is suddenly deemed in violation of the zoning ordinance. And so That's basically it. That summarizes our argument. I'm sure you've all read the packet that I've submitted, and if I can answer any questions for you, I'd be happy to do so.
Thank you, sir. Does any board members have any questions? Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead, Mike.
I have certainly a number of questions, but one in particular, because there's a grade that's missing on the site plan that makes it difficult for me to interpret where you're coming from, is on the back wall, the rear elevation of the house.
Yep.
The elevation on the site plan is not given. And I didn't know if you or the applicant knows what that elevation is on the back of the house.
Yes, it actually, if I can refer you to Exhibit 3 again, the very last page of Exhibit 3 is actually a summary of grades that were put together by our septic engineer, Thomas Kellogg. Do you see that or no?
I don't. Obviously, I'm trying to. So that is trying to. That's before Exhibit 6, right?
It's before Exhibit. Yeah, it's before Exhibit 6. It's before Exhibit 4. It's the very last page. Yeah, it's the last page of Exhibit 3.
And it's evaluation of the average grade around the house. Is that what it is?
That is, yes. And so if you take a look at that document, and again, that was prepared by our septic engineer.
All right, and I see that, yes.
And that gives us the basement floor elevation, the basement ceiling elevation, and then the average elevation of the basement.
All right.
And and if you want to double check where our engineer is coming from, if you take a look at the Exhibit 6, which is the denial letter, I believe it contains the measurements of the grade where the proposed finished basement floor is in the very last paragraph. That's Mr. Spencer's letter.
Okay, yeah, and I have that. So really, he's using the grade at each corner of the house and saying the grade right in the middle of that back wall is the average between the two. Okay. Because there is no grade shown on the site plan between the two corners of the house.
Yeah.
So I'm following you on that. The other question that I had before we get into the public hearing is that you went right to the elevations of the building. Now, for the lay people, the grade elevations are the proposed topography on the site, and I don't want to get that confused with the elevations of the house. The elevations of the house are essentially the pictures of what the house looks like from an architectural point of view. And I want to point out to my colleagues on the board that even though you went right to this house elevation, and architects are not famous for getting their grades correctly shown on their building elevations. So I want to point out to my fellow board members that the ground elevation shown around this house is not representative of what the site plan shows. The site plan grades actually show that there's a 4.5-foot grade change between the garage finished floor and the house. This grade around this house, the ground elevation shown around this house, shows a more typical drop of 2.5 feet, 30 inches, something like that, around this house. And I can kind of document that, even though I'm summarizing a little bit here. Any grade over 30 inches, the front porch has to have a railing around it. So it kind of supports my contention that really they artificially have that grade shown higher than it really is being proposed on the site plan on the elevations of the house itself. So we can't look at the pictures of the house to identify where the applicant is proposing the grade of the house. So I'm going to stop right there, and then I have a much more technical presentation or interpretation after we bring it back under board discussion.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? If not, I will open the public hearing. If anybody is out there that wishes to speak on this case is James and Lauren Waldrop at 725 Ranveen Drive. In order to be recognized to speak, you must press *9 and you will be recognized. Public has 3 minutes in which to give their comments, and then they will be cut off. And while we're waiting to see if anybody is joining us, I have 2 pieces of information in the file to read. June 10th, 2020, to whom it may concern. Since we cannot be at the zoning board meeting on June 11th, I am writing to express our concerns regarding the proposed building at 725 Ranveen. We are next to the lot at 715 Ranveen. It is our understanding that a raised basement is being proposed to accommodate a high water table. Changing the elevation will definitely have a negative effect on the properties on both sides of the home. The runoff will flood our properties as well as our septic fields. This is a low lot, and to propose a new home that will end up being almost 3 stories with the raised basement does not make sense. A house of that size would not aesthetically fit in our neighborhood. In addition, the septic system approved for that lot is for a 2-bedroom home. With 3 children, I find it hard to believe the house will actually build with only 2 bedrooms, or that the owners would keep it that way. Sincerely, Pat and Tom, and I'm spelling the last name, S like Sam, C like Charles, H like Henry, W-I-N-D. And the next letter is to the White Lake Zoning Board of Appeals. In regards to the property at 725 Ranveen, property that consists of fill from when they dredged to create a canal, can't possibly be a candidate for a 3-story house, despite the fact that the landowners believe that there won't be numerous issues like size of the house, septic, and drainage, all related to the street level, by trying to bury a basement by increasing the height of the property, is not the answer. No one is sure where the property owners ever got the idea that this lot would sustain such a house. We believe that this problem is a self-created hardship that should not be the future hardship for those living on Ranveen. We welcome a structure within reason that follows all zoning regulations. Concerned neighbors, Dave and Mary, and again, SCHOENEGGE at 708 Ranveen. And for the record, 29 owners were notified of this request. No letters received in favor. The 2 letters that I entered in were received, and no letters returned by United States Mail. And with that, is there anybody else out there that is going to join us, Ken?
Madam Chair, we do have callers in the meeting. And just to remind the callers, if you'd like to make comment, please press *9 on your keypad and we will be alerted and we will unmute your line. Again, the feature is *9 to wish to make a comment. And I'm seeing no virtual hands raised at this point, Madam Chair.
Okay, well, Mike, you had mentioned that you had talked to some neighbors. So, and they had indicated that they might be calling in. So why don't we give another 30 seconds or so before closing the public hearing?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay.
In the meantime, if I could ask the applicant a question. because I want to make sure that my mind is wrapping around this. It is my understanding that the applicant is not requesting any variance requests of this board, that they are asking for a zoning ordinance interpretation from the ZBA, which is one of our allowed actions. Is that correct, Mr. Applicant? Dan?
Yes, that's our take, yeah, that is correct, Mr. Powell. We are requesting an interpretation. This is not a variance application, so that's why I didn't talk about undue hardship and other factors that go into variance considerations.
Correct. Okay, thank you. I see some hands now.
Yes, we do have a caller, Madam Chair. A caller with the last four digits of 9230. We will unmute your line. Please state your name and address for the record. Go ahead, caller.
Hi, Michelle McGee, 714 Renvine.
Go ahead, caller.
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can. Thank you. Thank you very much, Michelle. The public hearing has been open. Please feel free to give your comments. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. I live across the street. I am not an engineer or anything, but I'm worried about flooding and issues, and I just want my voice to be heard and support everyone else, and that's really all I have to say.
Well, thank you very much, Michelle. Any others, Ken?
I see no other hands raised at this time.
Mike, your call. You want me to give him another 10 seconds or so?
Yeah, let's not, it's new to everyone, so another 10 seconds is worth it, I think.
And Madam Chair, if I could, while we're waiting,
Yes.
just to clarify, it is an appeal of an interpretation as opposed to an interpretation, just so there is, just for the record, it is an appeal of a decision or an interpretation by a township official is the action that's being requested.
Is there a technical difference, Sean?
I don't know. Those are just the words from the ordinance. So I was just wanting to stick to that. So there was no confusion.
Okay, thank you.
I think really an interpretation might be us bringing a question to you saying, how do you see it? In this case, they're saying we've already gotten a decision, but we don't agree with it. So we want to appeal that decision. So there may be a differentiation, or that might be the differentiation. I'm waiting for Lisa to nod, then I'll feel better about being accurate.
Lisa, are you nodding?
Well, Madam Chair, we had another caller. I'm not sure what happened. They had raised their hand and now they are completely checked out. They left the meeting altogether. So perhaps they had a malfunction or something.
And I do appreciate the clarification, Mr. O'Neill. That is correct. The posture of this this item for the board's consideration.
With that, then I will close the public hearing and bring it back to the board. Do you have any, well, actually, I'll bring it back to you, sir, first. Did you have any comments to make on the 2 letters that I read into the record?
Me?
Yes.
I don't have any comments.
Okay,
No.
I just have to give you that opportunity.
No, I mean, I wasn't aware of these letters before they were read into the record. That's the only thing I have to say.
Yep. Well, they're part of the record, and I've read them in, and you've had a chance to make comments if you want to. I wanted to make sure that you knew that you had the right to say anything about those at all. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Board members, what's your pleasure? Questions? Comments?
I'd like my colleagues to go first, but then I have a couple questions.
Okay. Does any of our other board members have any comments to make?
No, I don't.
All right, not hearing any. I have, this is a really difficult situation here, and it's not really unusual in most communities. And the problem is you have to and our ordinance does a good job of this, you have to establish a definition of a grade of the natural grade of the parcel before you can start anything. If you don't do that, then quite frankly, where do you choose the grade from? Because most lots aren't nearly as flat as this one. It either rises way up or it falls way down or it's undulating. So you move 2 feet to one direction and you don't have an established grade to interpret from. So our ordinance really does a great job in saying, all right, we're going to interpret the impact on this lot based upon the perception from the road or from the sidewalk. And so the right of way, which is a great spot to start. I've been involved in other cases where a property owner will come in and interpret it as the applicant is proposing. And he'll come in and raise the entire lot up before any building permits given whatsoever, raise the lot up 5 feet, 6 feet, 8 feet, just bring a lot of dirt in. And all of a sudden, the grade of the lot has been changed dramatically. And the interpretation, if you haven't started somewhere, you have an interpretation problem, because now the grade is where they wanted it to begin with, instead of where the ordinance would interpret it out front. So you have to start somewhere. The other problem with what I see the applicant is interpreting is at the grade adjacent to the foundation wall. I have reviewed plans also to where the applicant comes in and does something a little bit between the lines, and they have the house, and in order to meet the requirement of height of a building or average grade around the building, they build a retaining wall, railroad tie retaining wall all the way around the house. And they raise the grade on the house side of the retaining wall 5 feet, and it drops right off to the normal grade 5 feet away from the house. So a lot of times the ordinances that don't start out like our ordinance does, they say, all right, the grade will be established 10 or 15 or 20 feet out from the house, so that people can't play the game with retaining walls right up against the house, because grades can be changed very easily. I totally agree with the interpretation of our building department and planning department, because the grade, even if you ignore the definition of grade per our ordinance and use the applicant's interpretation of grade around the house, the average grade around the house would have to equal approximately 941 or 940.97. That's the break point between the finished floor of the basement and then the finished floor of the first finished floor. Most communities have the average grade between the finished floors. We give the applicant a little bit of a break, and they're assuming they have a 12-inch structural floor that's holding up the first floor. So it gives them a little bit of a break there, but the average grade around the house has to be at about 940 in order to even meet their definition. And if you go around this house, 940, they're virtually right on 940. Some places they're at 940.5, but 940 would be the average grade. Even their garage floor is 4.5 feet below the finished floor in order to just squeeze this house in. So they are just above, even in their interpretation of what would be more than half of the basement below grade. I totally disagree with their interpretation of the walkout. I believe that portion of our ordinance is defining grade in order to establish the height of the building, not the grade around the structure or whether it's a story. When it talks about a walkout or daylight basement cannot be considered as a 3-story. This is so typical around a lake in that you have a full basement backfilled all the way around 3 sides of the house. Some communities then will say, I'm sorry, but you have a 3-story out one side. Just one side of the house is 3 stories. Our ordinance gives the applicant the ability to meet the grade definition of the ordinance all the way around. And even if they drop to basement grade and have a height higher than the ordinance allows on one side of the house, they do not consider that a story because that's a walkout basement. And so it's really important for all of us to keep that in mind. I really believe that our ordinance is right on the money, and it gives the applicant and the property owner as much leeway as we possibly can. Otherwise, we end up with houses up on mounds with everybody else down below. There are 2 issues here that prompted them to have to do this. Number one, they started out with getting a septic field permit, and that permit, in meeting the Oakland County Health Department requirements, the septic field, the bottom of the field has to be 4 feet above the groundwater. And so that establishes their yard grade right up front before the house is even, before the plot plan's even really done. And also they've got a pre-treatment system here in order to even allow them to put this septic field in the way they've proposed it. So they're cleaning the sewage from the house, kind of almost as good as rainwater, and then putting into the ground. Then what they had a problem with is the groundwater. It would be foolish to set a basement down in groundwater. Those of us that have heard horror stories, all of us have, to where sump pumps are running 24/7 because they're down below the groundwater. And you certainly never want to. A builder would be crazy to put a house down in groundwater. And so now they have to establish their basement elevation at a certain elevation above the floodplain, and they then have to make everything else fit. I submit to my colleagues that there's a reason on this peninsula that there isn't any other basement on the whole peninsula. And that's because in order to do that, you have to artificially raise each lot so high that you create a mound at each lot in order to make it happen. So I need a little, I guess before I go any further, I would very much like to see if any of my colleagues have any comments on at least what I've tried to say here. Oh, one other thing very quickly. The homeowners on each side, I believe the engineer did an excellent job in draining this site. Yes, it's a mound, and it's going to look like a mountain, sheet flowing down on neighbors. But quite frankly, they've done a very good job draining this site and picking up the water, and water should not go past the property line. And I would also like to comment, and I don't know if it's proper, but the neighbors here really have grown to like the applicants. They really like them and want them to be neighbors. And so this is not at all personal. This is just strictly an issue of the ordinance and how this house is gonna be perceived and look from the neighborhood. So I'm gonna back off and see if my colleagues have anything else to say before I ask a legal question.
Well, Mike, I appreciate your comments. As always, that's your area of expertise, not mine. And I thank you. I appreciate you clarifying some things up in my mind for me. I really appreciate it. Do any other board members have any comments first?
Yes, I'd like to echo that, what you said, Joe, to our colleague. You were very artful in articulating the condition and the site and the circumstances around the applicant's proposal. Thank you.
I agree, and I did look at the site carefully, and I did look at the other homes and could not see any evidence of basements on any of the other homes, and realized I'm sure there's a high water table there, and they would have to pull this basement way out of the ground, and it would look like it wouldn't fit with the other homes.
This is a measurement. I don't know if we can get definitively, but how many feet taller would this home be than really any of the other ones in this general area?
I don't know the answer to that, but I can give you kind of an approximate. So it would, so that you understand, the applicant started out in his presentation that he understands why the ordinance is written the way it is, and he just disagrees with the interpretation. And then he used he said, because somebody can come in and just place the house just a foot below grade or right at grade. And I've unfortunately seen that as well. But quite frankly, his proposal, or his applicant's proposal, is to set the basement 2 feet, just 2 feet below existing grade. So although he drew the line at 1 foot, 2 feet really doesn't sink structure down in the ground to be called a basement. So I mean 2 feet in. So if you think about that, almost 3/4 of a story higher is what this house is going to be than the houses on either side.
Nick Spencer, do you by any chance happen to have a figure that could help us as to the height difference?
I do not, but what Mike just mentioned is accurate.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just almost imagining, I mean, this is almost like a freewheeling wide amount, but 6, 7, 8 feet, something like that.
Right. And the house to the west is a 2-story. It's got the main floor and it's got a second story. The house on the right, or the east side, is a ranch. So this house is going to be 6, 8 feet higher, and it's got a fairly steep roof as well, higher than the 2-story house to the west. So it's going to really be higher than the one to the east.
Thank you. Want to ask your legal question then, Mike?
Yes. So if Mrs. Mahamami would remove her mute button there. All right. So I think based upon how I've couched my presentation here, I'm going to agree with the interpretation of the building department and planning department of our ordinance. Is it proper to just say that we agree with the interpretation thus far, or do we have to articulate each point that the applicant is challenging the interpretation?
No, you can just articulate the reason you are affirming the interpretation, and it could just be for the reasons you've stated on the record. But, and I think you were talking about the artificial grade affecting drainage, and how the purpose of this grading ordinance is to establish a grade and not allow artificial interference. And all the things that I'm repeating mostly what you said, but those would be the reasons. So for the reasons stated in the correspondence and stated on the record.
All right. So I'm going to wait until we see, and I'll try to make the motion if we're ready.
Board members, are we ready?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. I can see Nick's nodding his head. Debbie?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, Mike.
All right. So let me, just out of curiosity here, go up and see. So I move that the ZBA concurs with the interpretation made by the township officials in the case of James and Lauren Waldrop regarding parcel or lot 725 Van Beeden Drive, because the ordinance defines the established grade of a lot based upon an unchanging grade with respect to how it's perceived from the public right of way and from the neighbors on each side. So that is I find that is the appropriate way to interpret the definition of grade. I believe that the interpretation of the grade by the applicant is for the interpretation of the height of the structure, not the established grade on the site. And this site is even easier to interpret. And I'm rambling here a little bit because the site grade itself matches the road grade. And so it's very uniform. And I believe this is an ideal example of interpreting the ordinance as it's written.
Thank you. Do we have a support?
Support.
Thank you, Dave. Hannah, may we have a roll call, please?
DeHart,
I agree. Based on everything that Mike said and for all the reasons that have been stated.
Powell,
Yes, in order to be in order to match the homes all the way up and down the street and to conform to the ordinance requirements.
Shellac,
Yes, for the reasons stated.
Walls,
I vote yes for the reasons stated, in addition to the August 30th, 2019 letter by Nick Spencer to Clearview Homes.
Spencer,
Yes, I do not believe that we are not denying substantial justice. And we are not denying the proponent property rights similar to those enjoyed by the majority of other properties in the same vicinities and other properties in the same zoning district. A home can be built without a basement. To build as indicated might result in substantial adverse impact on surrounding properties. We, as the Zoning Board of Appeals, are compelled to follow the ordinance as written and approved by the township. With that, your variance, sir, has been denied. As I stated in other cases, the minutes will be ready by Monday. You have, as I said at the very beginning, and I'm sure you're aware of it, there is no other board that can overrule this board. So your only course of action, if you decide to take it further, is circuit court, and you would have 30 days in which to file that appeal.
For clarification, not a variance that has been denied, but a interpretation that has been upheld.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I wanted to clarify that myself for the record. So
Yes,
Right,
I appreciate that.
An appeal, right?
we don't get too many of these types.
That's what I understand. So thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Any other business then that do we have, Sean?
No other business at this time. When we had some downtime earlier, I neglected to introduce to you Justin. You've all either talked to him or corresponded with him or seen emails, regarding his joining the team. He will handle the next meeting in 2 weeks, and I had mentioned that earlier on, but his microphone is broken. It worked earlier, so he can just wave, and there he is. So I didn't want to completely overlook the fact that I hadn't formally introduced him. So you'll hear more from him in a couple weeks.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard, Justin.
Yes, happy to have you. Do we have a, well then, our next meeting is June 25th. It's going to be an electronic meeting. As stated earlier, we will have 3 cases, so we will not have a time restriction that is advertised. Hopefully it'll move a lot faster. And do we have a motion to adjourn?
And hey, I'm sorry, if I could really quick, just clarify, that meeting begins at 7 p.m. I gave you an hey, sorry about that. I just was excited. I didn't want you to go without. I know, and
You're
this
fine.
special meeting started at 6, but we will start at 7 in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion.
Do we have a support? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, good job.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Ken.
Hey, everyone.
Thank you.
I need to just hang out here for 20 seconds while YouTube winds down.